Don't tell anyone.
Don't tell anyone.
But you've possibly found the best kept secret in business. He's handsome. He's loud. He's got some tattoos. He'll tell you as it is and only wears a suit at a wedding or a funeral. No jargon, no overcomplicated 300-stage program. Just upfront, honest, proven ideas, thoughts, and strategies
That actually
work. So here's your host, the best kept business secret probably anywhere.
Ladies and gentlemen,
This is Mark Ford.
Hi and welcome to the podcast. I am Mark Ford. I am your best kept business secret. So then guys, I'm going to do something a little bit different with the podcasts. You are listening to the very first of a 13-part series. And so now you're sat there going, what is this 13-part series about? Well, look, this year I've done several presentations about how Saturday morning TV has actually given us many, many business lessons as kids. But to be fair, we were all probably bouncing off the walls with coco-pops way too much to notice. But recently, my childhood favourite TV programme of all time has come back. Doctor Who. It came back with quite a bang, quite simply because of the controversy surrounding its very first female lead character. Now, let's be fair, those that got their backsides in their hand about a woman taking the lead of a very popular sci-fi drama are probably the same people who get upset if they have a female boss, a female CEO, and have forgotten that the whole thing is in fact a made-up story about a two-hearted alien that regenerates and turns into different people. But that, my friends, is a different story for another day and probably another podcast. Now, originally airing on Saturday the 23rd of November in 1963 at 5:16 p.m. and, incidentally, have released this very podcast at exactly that same time and that same date to celebrate the fact it was a brainchild of Sidney Newman, a man brought on board by the BBC from ITV to do something a little different with the drama department, and different it was. Designed as a 25-minute filler programme, it's gone through its highs and lows and is now one of the biggest money spinners that the publicly owned BBC actually have. So, let's talk about the lessons of business from exploring the very first Doctor, William Hartnell. Doctor Who first appeared on BBC TV on Saturday 23rd of November 1963. It was to be a regular weekly programme with each episode 25 minutes of transmission length. Discussions and plans for the programme had been in progress for a year, so back in 1962. The head of drama, Sidney Newman, was mainly responsible for developing this programme, with the first format document for the series being written by Newman himself, along with the head of script departments, Donald Wilson, and staff writer C.E. Webber. Now, the programme was originally intended to appeal to a family audience as an educational programme, using time travel as a means to explore scientific ideas and famous moments in history. But, before we talk about the very first episode, let's talk about the very first business lesson that we could and we should all learn from just by its existence. Now, as I mentioned before, Sidney Newman was brought in to do something a little different with drama. Poached from ITV, he was a Canadian that was responsible for The Avengers, which is the TV show and not the superhero movies. He was also the antidote to the stuffy, stiff upper-lipped BBC executives that were already in place, just being very British. Well, what do I mean by that? Well, you see, at that particular time, there were a lot of dramas on the BBC, essentially just well-written plays, but televised. Historical dramas were the norm and were served up on a regular basis, and if you think about it, a massive turn-off to a younger audience, unless you were forced into liking Shakespeare, had a penchant for plays based in Rome, or loved a confusing plot based in Victorian times. Newman, however, recognised that the BBC had a problem. There was a 25-minute slot between the sports programme Grandstand and the teeny bopper magnet that was Jukebox Jury, where ratings effectively fell off a cliff. Traditional TV dramas just didn't work there. And this is where that very first lesson arrives. As business owners, we're all problem solvers. It doesn't matter what business you are in, you solve someone's problem, even if they don't realise they actually have a problem. You see, you could be a business coach that helps put business owners who are in utter chaos in order and get them making money. You could be a shop owner that provides a one-stop shop for customers to buy all their basic needs. You could even be an undertaker that helps people get rid of their dead relatives and puts them in the ground with all the pomp and ceremony that they deserve without the family digging a hole or dealing with any more unpleasantness. Some are necessary problems that need solving. Some problems are just first world problems. And some are necessary evil problems. The ones that solicitors, estate agents and accountants perform. Now, Newman looked at his customer's problem, but in this case, the customer was the BBC and began to devise a plan. It was a bit of a genius plan, if I'm honest. You see, kids and teenagers love sport, as they do now. Kids and teenagers love music, even more so back then. You see, they didn't have Spotify, iTunes, HMV, R-Price, or even Top of the Pops yet. BBC Radio 1 was still 4 years away from its first broadcast, so there was a massive audience for the music from that TV show alone. Now, he set about designing and creating a show that could be fun, entertaining and educational to that specific market. He even sat down and wrote the original treatment for the particular show, and it came in the form of Doctor Who. It was designed to be a show about a man who travelled through time in his ship, visiting places and times of interest. He was to be the older professor type character, as back then we had more respect for teachers and probably what they did. If you try getting kids to watch an educational programme like this now, it would probably never have got off the ground. Now, the second lesson that's kind of out there is something that, for whatever reason, we really haven't learnt much from in 55 years. Although, to our credit, we're probably starting to get there a little bit faster. That lesson comes in the form of Newman appointing a female producer and leader in the form of Verity Lambert. A decisive and a brave move that caused more than a few tidal waves back at the BBC. It was a man's world in the 1960s, and so trying to get anything done for Lambert was like pushing a rock uphill all day, every day. Looking back at the trouble leading up to its very first launch, it was amazing that it ever got aired. But not only was Newman diverse in his choice of producer, Verity Lambert was just as diverse in her choice of director for the first episodes. Waris Hussain was a British Indian, born in Lucknow, Uttar Pradesh. And so the team entrusted to bring the very first set of episodes together were as diverse as they could be, working within a 1960s publicly owned corporation. A Canadian, an Indian and a woman. Who'd have thought that we still struggle with that crap right now, some 55 years later? So to encapsulate the first two lessons in one word, that word would be opportunity. The opportunity presented itself in a 25-minute slot that wasn't being looked after and was a problem dying to be solved. The opportunity to break a few barriers in a heavily white English male corporation presented itself by introducing a female producer and an ethnic director. Nobody ever did anything of worth by playing by the usual rules. Now, the run-up to the first episode was at best troublesome. Various articles, stories and documentaries show that no one at the corporation took the problem of those 25 minutes very seriously. From set designs not being designed to set building not being completed on time. Being forced to use a knackered old studio where the sprinklers would go off if it got too hot from the studio lights, and to actually finding an actor to play the lead role. These were just a few of the problems that the team faced. Yet the vision and goal were always there. Solve the problem of those 25 minutes. Eventually, they hired actor William Hartnell. A seasoned and somewhat veteran character actor, he took the role on, with a proviso that it wouldn't typecast him and shackle him with work. Little did he know that it was a role that would define him, and arguably would still be remembered above all others. 55 years later, we Doctor Who fans still talk about him, and his work on the series is looked upon with great fondness and huge gratefulness. How many businesses would love to have left that legacy behind? So let's time travel forward a little to the recording of the first pilot. It was crap. Utterly awful. People forgetting their lines, bumping into stuff, and cameras bumping into one another. It was never aired. Newman was the only man to see it and called the producer and director to a meeting. And this is where the third lesson lies. Test whatever you do first before you launch it. If it had been aired, I probably wouldn't be talking to you about it right now. Newman wrote a ream of notes and gave the producer and director a chance to put things right at the expense of the corporation. To effectively bin an episode back in the 60s was almost like binning a sack full of cash down the drain. It was unheard of. But Newman realised that the effect of not getting it right would cost them more money in the long run. You see, sets, actors and contracts would probably cost even a bigger fortune to mothball. They got this far. So they remade the pilot, which actually turned out to be the first episode. And it launched on Saturday, November the 23rd, 1963. To shocking ratings. It was the day after John F. Kennedy had been shot, and as a nation, we weren't very interested in sport or jukebox jury. We were watching news reports and listening to radio updates. The BBC were doing what they were good at, not promoting an episode of a time-travelling drama. Knowing and being certain that he had a hit on his hands, Newman convinced the stuffed suits above to allow him to repeat the first episode right before the second episode 1 week later. It was a success. The first series, containing 42 episodes, aired to an average of 8 million people over a 10-month period. Now, the lesson here is that if you wait for the perfect time to do something, it'll probably never happen. Effectively, this programme was launched 3 times. Its original unaired episode, its aired episode, and its repeated episode. Lessons learned each time and done better than next. The passion and vision to see the job done like nothing the BBC had experienced before. I want to also touch on something else that as I was kind of writing this, it popped into my head and may come out as a mini rant. Now, I apologise if it does, but I think it needs to be said. You see, the first series contained 42 episodes. 42 episodes! Nowadays, that's almost unheard of. And before any of you TV buffs say weekly shows like Coronation Street or EastEnders broadcast more, I'm going to throw this back at you. The core cast of Doctor Who was effectively 4 people. 4 people carrying a show. And that was with guest casts, guest stars, new sets, new stories, new monsters, new challenges virtually on a weekly basis. Long-running dramas nowadays have casts well into double figures with shorter scenes and sets permanently in one place. Doctor Who's success was not only down to its innovation of the drama genre at that particular time, but just as equally important was the sheer hard work and graft that went into the project by the team behind the scenes. Now, as we currently sit here in 2018, we are surrounded by a stack of people who tell you to close your eyes, dream a dream, and it'll all come true because you want it to. Stop it. Stop it now. You see, everyone's and anyone's success is also down to the hard work to climb into those particular steps to get that success. It's great having a vision, but it also means getting up and doing what you need to do every single day to get where you need to be, even if you don't feel like it. Working longer and harder than others to prove people wrong, making mistakes, learning from them, and continually pushing yourself to achieve that goal or dream. There are no shortcuts. The more you do, the smarter you get. The smarter you get, the better you get. The better you get, the better and sweeter the end result. These guys in November 1963 through to September 1964 worked day and night. Rehearsed, wrote, rewrote, create, built, changed, adapted, learned and produced an end result for nearly a year to attract the audience and the following that they got. It was through that hard work that they became a national sensation. And yes, it's true that they had their bit of luck. But you see, the harder you work, the luckier you get. The luck boiled down to someone asking a writer to create a villain for a story. And boy, did they create one of the most well-known, feared, and hide behind your sofa kind of villains that the world has ever seen. Writer Terry Nation gave us the Daleks. From the very first episode that they appeared in, with the iconic assistant scream whilst looking at a sink plunger at the end of that particular episode, children up and down the nation were hooked. And if truth be told, so were the parents. It became proper family viewing. Doctor Who had given us something to unite behind or appreciate, however you look at it. It gave birth to Dalek Mania. And that was a real thing, by the way. And there, my friends, is the next lesson. You see, every business should have a cause, a reason, a why to get behind. In the last decade, individuals have told businesses and the people that run them that they need as many eyes on them as possible, no matter what the cost. Get as many likes on your page, as many followers as you can, because it means something. Not sure what, but it means something. The bigger your likes, loves and retweets you get, the more you think you mean to your customers and clients. Wrong. Utter rubbish. There is one truth that no matter what marketers or anybody else says that have been proven over and over and over again is that people buy from people. It doesn't matter whether that's as an individual or as part of the ethos of a business. People will always buy from people. A business's ethos comes from someone, somewhere. And that's what people buy into. Now, you see, I'm a massive fan of Simon Sinek's Golden Circles video and his book, Find Your Why. He breaks that magic sauce down into 3 components: what a business does, how a business does it, and the most important bit, why a business does it. Whilst on a purely entertainment basis, they gave people a reason why they should watch Doctor Who, and it came in the form of a villain that scared the crap out of children up and down the country. It brought families together. The BBC didn't need to advertise the programme. It was word of mouth. If you'd missed it and it was the talk of the playground on Monday morning, you made sure you saw it the following week. Remember, there were no videos or hard drive boxes back then. It was always on a Saturday tea time, week in, week out, dependable. Did what it always did. Great quality for its time in entertainment, and in many people's eyes, was way ahead of its time. And there, within the programme itself, it taught you another business lesson. If the Daleks were the Doctor's true nemesis, then your competitors should be yours. You see, they're taking your ideal customers and clients away from you. They are killing your business. They are destroying your capacity to earn and to grow. Now, the beautiful thing was that the Doctor never ever used guns or heavy artillery to beat his nemesis. He used his guile, wit, intelligence and experience to outsmart them. In fact, they all have. All 13 Doctors have done that. It's a mainstay of the character's personality, and through various decades, it would have been very trendy to use that heavy type of shortcut to defeat an enemy. It would only be a short-term victory, and a victory at a personal cost to the character. A quick fix, if you like. And it's the same in business. There is nothing to be proud of if you crush your competition by heavy discounting or heavy marketing and bullying tactics. There is always a cost, either financially or to a reputation. It's a short-term tactic that, whilst it does work, it only lasts as long as your customers remain uneducated. You see, as soon as they work out there is another way, a better way, a smarter way, they begin to follow those people and those businesses, because it's what they want and what they believe in. So use your guile, your experience, your uniqueness, your wit and your smartness to attract your ideal customers and clients, because they'll stick with you. They'll run through walls for you. They'll support you in good times and bad, just like the Doctor's companions have always done. His following. Austin Kleon, author of the book Show Your Work, says, "You want hearts, not eyeballs." It's so true. You see, I very rarely see an Apple advert, but here I am recording this on an iMac, having written this on an iPhone and an iPad, and I fell in love with the simplicity of the whole bloody thing. The ease of use and the effect that it has on my working life and my career. They have made just stuff so easy for me. And guess what? That got my heart. Now, this was also a time to cash in on the stratospheric reactions that the public had to the Daleks. Way before George Lucas came up with these plastic toys, the BBC had encouraged companies to make toys, books and games of Doctor Who and the Daleks. It even spun off into 2 feature-length movies seen in cinemas the world over. Doctor Who and the Daleks, starring Peter Cushing as the Doctor, was made in 1965 in Hartnell's second year, and Daleks Invasion Earth 2150 AD was made in Hartnell's last year, again starring Cushing, but was received very, very poorly at the box office. Effectively, they were just bigger budgeted and longer episodes of the TV show. I guess you could use this as a lesson on cashing in and diversifying, and given more time, I probably would. But there's another lesson that I want to talk to you about. And actually, to me, it's more important. This lesson is reimagining and building something bigger than just one person when the time is right, and the time is right to move into a different direction. In his last series, between 1965 and July 66, Hartnell began showing signs of being unwell. Very unwell. He was struggling with arteriosclerosis, which began to affect his ability to learn lines. Producer Verity Lambert had decided to move on to pastures new, and Hartnell, well known for being difficult to work with at the best of times, was struggling to get on with the new production team. This could have been the end for the show. How could it go on without its lead man? And what would happen to the now nearly 10 million viewers that it had on a weekly basis? Good old Sidney Newman had the answer. You see, the Doctor is an alien. So what's stopping him from renewing his body and his shape if he got old or ill or died? This became what's known as regeneration and has become a staple, must-see TV moment throughout the show's history to see what the new person looks like and how different they are to the previous one. It gave the show a chance to have a different tone, a different direction, different stories and a fresh impetus. It was utter genius. It suddenly made this show about a man in an old police box travelling through time and space into a different show about a man in an old police box travelling through time and space. It had the same core values. The same problems still needed solving. The same customers, and now some new ones, needed entertaining on a Saturday tea time. And this was the way to do it. Change its leader. The lesson was simple. If it's right to change, change. Even if that means you have to change your team and change the people within that team. It may be considered selfish, but your legacy will be viewed very, very differently if you choose not to change. A business or person that isn't growing is failing or dying, according to Tony Robbins. So growth is natural, but how you choose to follow that path may involve decisions that are necessary for that growth to continue. It may well be painful, but not confronting those decisions will become more painful given time. See, change is inevitable in business. It's just how you handle it that can make a big difference to you and your business. In July 1966, Hartnell fell to the floor as the first Doctor, his cape positioned perfectly, a picture of a moist brow in black and white. And with basic TV trickery, the image had turned into a man named Patrick Troughton. But for children everywhere, up and down the country, it was just a bloke that wasn't the Doctor. For TV executives, this was a gamble and a journey into the unknown. So let's take a quick recap of the business lessons from the very first Doctor. Number 1, opportunity. See a problem and solve it. Choose a team that suits you and not the norm. To make the most of that opportunity, sometimes, just sometimes, you need to break a few barriers down and bend a few rules to solve the problem that lays before your customers and your clients. Number 2, test before you launch anything. In most walks of life, you only get one opportunity to impress. React to the feedback and sort what's wrong quickly. Number 3, graft. It takes real graft, not just from you, but everyone in your success team to make your vision and goals happen. It's great to have clear mental image of where you're going, but unless you put in the time and the effort, that's all there'll ever be, is mental images. Number 4, give people a reason why they should get behind you, why they should follow you. Customers and clients will go through brick walls to support you if they believe in what you're doing as a business. Number 5, view your competitors as a nemesis. Look at them, learn from them, be better than them, keep learning, and use longer-term tactics to be better. Quick fixes work, and yes, they become addictive. Unfortunately, too addictive, and eventually will lead to a company collapse. And finally, number 6, recognize the time for change and don't be afraid of it. Change can be good. It puts wind back in your sails and can take you to new heights that you've only ever dreamt of. But remember, it comes with risk. But without risk, there will never be any gains. And that's the podcast. I hope you enjoyed it. I know it's something a little bit different. And there are probably Doctor Who fans who got quite a little bit excited about it. I'd love to hear from you, especially if you're a Doctor Who fan that runs a business, whether you agree with me or disagree with me. And guess what? If you're not a Doctor Who fan, I'd still love to hear from you, whether you agree with me or not agree with me. Go and get in touch with me via my social media platforms. So just find Mark Ford, your best kept business secret, or you can go to my website, which is www.markford.uk, which is www.markford.uk. Use the contact form. Come and say hi. Go and have a look around at all the sort of stuff that I'm doing. And until next time, stay safe. Avoid any blue police boxes. And next time, we'll talk about the second Doctor, Patrick Troughton.
This podcast is sponsored by JB Commercial Finance, the trusted funding solutions for business. JB Commercial Finance are experienced, whole-of-market commercial finance brokers and will help you and your business raise money no matter your circumstances. Whether you're investing in your business, have cash flow challenges, or you're looking to acquire commercial premises, get in touch with us now for independent, expert, and honest advice. For a free, no-obligation assessment, find us at www.jbcommercialfinance.co.uk or call 0116-3440-322. JB Commercial Finance is fully authorized and regulated by the Financial Conduct Authority and are proud members of the National Association of Commercial Finance Brokers.